Hey, welcome back to the channel. It's me Eva, helping you create the sustainable wardrobe you have always wanted. Today we are talking about what happens when sewing goes wrong. What can we do? Now, I'm not sure whether you remember, whether you've seen my video where I upcycled this piece from old shirts, but quite a few things went wrong. And I followed one of the tips that I'm going to share with you today in that video to create this. And actually the result ended up being better than what I initially envisioned. So it was very helpful. So I thought I'm going to share with you 3 pieces of advice, and I hope that you find them useful. So what can you do when sewing goes wrong? Tip number 1, look at it as an opportunity to learn. So you can think of it in 2 ways when it comes to that. One, if you make a mistake of any sort when it comes to creative projects, then be assured that you won't be making that mistake again. If you don't make that mistake, you may make it sooner or later. Once we make a mistake, we can learn from it, and we won't do things exactly in the same way. We'll approach things differently next time when we're faced with a similar situation. And it does apply to sewing projects and upcycling projects as well. If you know that, for example, you are working with material that frays a lot, and when you have done a project in the past, this didn't work particularly well, you will in advance think about what can you do to not make the same mistake again. The other way you can look at it as a learning opportunity is that if something didn't quite went well, then you can look at different techniques that maybe you haven't used before and you didn't know about. And so that mistake that you have made would be a driver for you to go and find that extra information that you didn't have before. In either scenario, you would have learned more from making that mistake than if you didn't. And in that, you have already become a better designer and a better upcycler and a sewer. So it is a good way to just keep optimistic about the project, because everything I think is salvageable. And one way or another, you can salvage things. So don't panic. Think about what you can learn. Go and learn it. Come back to it. That's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is leave it and then think about the skills that may have let you down on this occasion. Now, this might be a bit similar to the first tip that I meant, but really it's more about, for example, if you are sewing something, maybe with visible stitching, and the stitches don't work very well, it just didn't work, one went one way, the other went the other way, the stitch was wrong, that stitch was wrong. Maybe it's time to face that you have to practice more when it comes to sewing, or you don't do top stitching. It's one of the 2 things. One is easier than the other, but if you have highlighted an issue with a skill that you need to see those projects through, then you do need to work on it, and you're better off doing that earlier than later anyway. So again, leave the project, go and practice and practice and practice, and come back to it, and it will be better. It will be better. And again, a mistake could highlight a skill that you could strengthen. And I think that's also a really good thing. Tip number 3, get creative. This is by far my favorite, is the most fun of them all, and it is something you can truly do, especially when it comes to redesigning and upcycling. And this is what I did for this piece as well, because this piece was supposed to be a jumpsuit that didn't have any details along here. It had a different cut. It was different, but I quite like the result that I achieved, because when things went wrong, I already had gained the skills that I needed to make sure that the project just keeps flowing. and I addressed when I made a mistake as to how I could rectify it, because I'd learned the techniques and I had the skills. So I had already followed the first 2 points in advance from previous projects that didn't go well. And with this project, I just went creative and thought, okay, so if this bit didn't go well, for example, with this in particular, I know, as far as I remember, the elasticated waist that I wanted for the jumpsuit didn't work very well. And actually having the jumpsuit itself didn't really flatter me. So I ended up changing the design because of that. But that made me think, okay, so if I'm not going to be doing a jumpsuit with what I have, the materials that I have left, the cut that I've got so far, what else can I do that could also work? And that comes with knowledge. But I think getting creative comes with not just the knowledge, but also the practical experience of things. So if you don't get creative in the first place, you won't start coming up with new ideas. So I'd say don't be afraid of it. Experiment and have fun, because literally everything is salvageable in one way or another. It may not be exactly what you started with, but sometimes it can be more exciting later. If you want to learn more skills in terms of the foundations of how to do things, I have got a course which I think you'd really enjoy, and I do give extra support for that course. So I think you'll enjoy it. It's for beginners, people that have sewing machines and want to take their clothes to the next level. So be sure to check it out, have a little read what it's about, and if you feel it's the thing for you, do sign up. I'll put the link in the description below. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you have found this useful, and if you have any other tips that would help someone when sewing goes wrong, please do share them in the comment section below. I look forward to seeing you next time, and until then, stay creative and see you soon.